had just about given up on these guys. Pharoah, maybe you haven't heard of them. They came along in 2003, an American band heavily influenced by European power metal with a heavy dash of prog mixed in, with 2003's astonishing After the Fire. And somewhat naively, I admit, I assumed they were going to be the next big thing in heavy metal and make the whole genre explode commercially all over again. It didn't happen that way. But they followed that up with a string of superlative albums over the next few years, culminating in the 2012 release Bury the Light, and then proceeded to not be heard from again for almost a decade. But finally, they are back with this monstrously heavy yet adventurous platter, The Powers That Be.
This album has a really cool cover with a giant rock spewing lightning down on people. Inside, we have a lyric insert, just the lyrics.
And take note of the credits here. Tim Aymar on lead vocals, Chris Black on drums, Matt Johnson on guitar, Chris Kearns on bass, and if you look at the songwriting credits, pretty much everyone has a hand in putting this material together. Now, when you drop this onto your turntable, or into your CD player, or just pull it up on Tidal, as most of you probably will, right out the gate, you are pummeled mercilessly with the brutal off-kilter anthem, The Powers That Be. And you'll notice right off the bat a production style that harkens right back to the 1970s. Kind of an old-fashioned woody drum sound. The bass is fat, prominent in your face, and it's pretty stripped back. A lot of layering on the guitar side of the fence, especially this guy likes harmonies. A lot. It's always been the case. But you'll also notice a distinct lack of keyboards and a lot of other extras on this album.
On this album, the guitars are a very different style, well, from everything I've listened to before, which is mostly British metal and power metal. So I guess somewhere there's probably somebody with a guitar style like this, but I found it really unique.
One thing that's characterized Matt Johnson's style, basically from the band's inception, is his love of guitar harmonies. It's all over the album. Half the time, if he's going to choose between playing a riff and backing a chorus with a harmonized guitar line, he's going to do the latter.
These songs have some pretty adventurous arrangements, like We Will Rise.
Will We Rise?
Will We Rise, which starts with a couple verses and choruses and then jumps into the super cool instrumental part.
That goes all over the place and is practically through composed. Very, very little bit ever repeats itself after it gets through those first couple of verses. And a whole lot of this album is like that. I'm thinking particularly multifaceted gems like Lost in the Waves, which holds back the chorus so long that you're practically screaming for it finally delivers.
By the roar, run to the shore, and the oceans will rise up and swallow them. They will be lost in the waves, adrift in their graves, when the oceans will rise up and swallow them.
On the other hand, you get some fairly standard, just traditional metal songs like Ride Us to Hell, which in their own way are equally great. And one of the nice things here is this album managed to be progressive without being terribly long-winded about it. I don't think any of these songs top out at over maybe 6 or 7 minutes.
No, I don't think so.
Iron Maiden, take notes.
These guys know how to slow it down and still sound great when they want to. They've got a ballad on here, Waiting to Drown.
It's almost like a prelude to Lost in the Waves. Very cool.
Mm-hmm.
I dreamed I walked along the riverbed, burned up and barren, full of holes.
And nice soft intros for When the World Was Mine and Dying Sun.
Acoustic intros, which I might point out, man, should not overstay their welcome and be musically interesting. Once again, Iron Maiden take notes. Now, compared to their past, there's very little of what I would consider power metal on here, but you do still hear nods to it, the most obvious one being a track on the back half of the album entitled Freedom.
Particularly, I'm thinking about that big, catchy, in-your-face, all about the vocals chorus.
Now, lyrically, like pretty much every other damn album this year, a world in turmoil seems to be the going theme here.
Except, usually it's our world. This seems to be based off some other world.
Are we going to another world?
Well, it seems we are, because from what I've heard, I think this album tells a little bit of a story.
Do tell.
Well, we start with the powers that be, and Will We Rise, really setting the scene for a world where there's a tyrant, a ruler, not wanted there.
Okay.
And then we have Waiting to Drown and Lost in the Waves. Waiting to Drown, it's really just a more down-tempo prelude to Lost in the Waves. And then after that, there's Lost in the Waves, where the story tells of people being marched to the shore to drown, but instead the oceans rise up and swallow the people, killing them. And then we have Ride Us to Hell. I think that's just a fun song, kind of about the enemy and them being evil and whatnot. And
That seems to, it could certainly be about a tyranny, lies and hypocrisy, casting the spells of disharmony, godless theocracy, ride us to hell where we all run free.
Mm-hmm.
I like it.
And then we have When the World Was Mine. I believe that is written in the view of the person who was the tyrant. It's all about wanting to rule again, and it mentions flying through a storm, which is exactly what happened earlier in Lost in the Waves.
I'm feeling it.
Then you have Freedom. They kind of had a big victory there. And then we have Dying Sun, a battle, but it doesn't tell us who won. And then we have I Can Hear Them, which is kind of all about a dying soldier. It mentions angels and being alone.
Yeah, I can dig it. All right. I like that. She's a much deeper listener to lyrics than I ever will be. My entire interest in lyrics is that they have cool imagery and are well written. What it's about, I could care less. Now, I have to say, out of everything we reviewed this year, I'm not sure I go so far as to say this is the very, very bestest album that we've checked out. It's certainly the most adventurous. These guys are certainly not afraid to experiment. And it is a phenomenal listen from start to finish. All killer, no filler. If I had to pick one song, I would choose the aforementioned Lost in the Waves. I think we've already talked about that one a little bit. Least favorite? Freedom, which is still a pretty ripping track.
The awesome prelude to Lost in the Waves, Waiting to Drown, is definitely my favorite track.
Waiting to Drown actually a little bit reminds me of things that you would hear on, say, a 70s prog record, like Peter Gabriel era Genesis or something like that.
My least favorite, I have to agree with you on that one, is Freedom. It's just not quite as good as the rest of the album.
Regardless, this is definitely an album to pick up. Now, one thing I gotta say, tooling around the internet, Pharoah, dudes, you gotta do something about your self-promotion. Your YouTube channel hasn't been added to since 2012. I honestly can find very little anywhere promoting the band, nor do I see any tour dates for this album. We definitely like to see more of you out there trying to push your music, because seriously, Pharoah is one of the coolest heavy metal bands to come out in the past 20 years, and based on the quality of the limited amount of material they've given us, I'd put them right up there with any of my old classic favorite bands. They're really that good. I love this album to pieces, and I wouldn't even say this is their best album. If I had to pick one, I'd probably take 2012's Bury the Light. So if you haven't heard of Pharoah, for the love of God, get their back catalog. You want to hear this band, and buy this album.
Absolutely. You definitely need a copy.
And show your support for little known bands. Go onto their merch page and buy a t-shirt or something. In any event, I believe that's all we have for the moment. Until we meet again.
Crank it up A little louder.